Okay, I am a Floridian, but even this amount of heat, even I'm not used to this. Ah! Continuing on from my autobiography of my time as a Doctor Who fan, after the TV movie crashed and burned, well, my lust for new Doctor Who would not go satisfied for another 9 years. So I had to fall back on some more classic fare, which fortunately there was plenty of that. But the real question, how was I able to find it in order to enjoy it? Well, one day I'm arriving home from summer school. Yeah, I was a model student. Summer school, I was flipping through channels, and amidst the forest of bad courtroom shows, bad talk shows, bad soap operas, and just okay 60s sitcoms, all of a sudden I'm flipping past our local affiliates, and lo and behold, there it was. That familiar theme tune paired up with a, well, visually interesting version of the intro credits from the TV movie. It looked a lot like this. Then it fades into a bunch of stock footage of lava and of magma. And fading into the image is the title Inferno by Don Houghton, Episode 6. Going strong, but now I've got a bit of a problem. Episode 6, that means there's 5 episodes prior, which I am going to be completely in the dark about. Will I still be able to enjoy this regardless of not really knowing what happened in 5 episodes prior? Well, I am delighted to say, because the writing on this one is so sharp, even if I wasn't 100% on the entire story, it did not stop me from thoroughly enjoying what I saw. And that's saying something, considering, due to my tragically American sensibilities, particularly when it comes to production value, it was blatantly obvious that the visuals were not going to win any awards. The story of Inferno is so engrossing, and the acting is extremely strong. The direction is, for what it's worth, exceptionally done, but the thing that balances it all, and the thing that brings it all together, and at the second I saw him, I had absolutely no problem recognizing that this person, this drastically different person from Paul McGann, was the Doctor. And that Doctor was, of course, Mr. Jon Pertwee. Not only was Inferno my first brush with the classic series, it was also my first brush with Jon Pertwee. And I can't think of a better Doctor I could have started watching the classic series with. He is an absolute marvel. He is probably one of the most dynamic Doctors, and I will argue that no other Doctor has been able to match his level of dynamism that he brought to the role. The Doctor is observing a drilling project, a project that is manned by a blowhard named Professor Stallman, who is hell-bent to pierce the Earth's crust because he believes that there's a new energy source hidden down there. Where he gets this impression, I have absolutely no idea. But the Doctor is kind of blasé about the project, even kind of timid about it. But that's not going to stop him from going there to use their nuclear power plant to power up the TARDIS console so he can experiment with it to try to repair it. Problems do tend to arise when an anonymous green ooze starts coming up from the drill head, and anyone who comes into contact with it turns into primitive beasts whose very touch burns and has a virulent influence. But because it seems like the situation is contained, it doesn't stop the Doctor from going about his business working with the TARDIS console. Well, the second he tries to turn it on, it flings him into a parallel reality where every one of his friends are now denizens of a fascist state. Even worse, the Doctor is actually witnessing the drilling project at a more accelerated phase, which, well, as these things go, is tantamount to the end of the world. The story takes kind of a drastic 90-degree turn, and normally in any other case this particular plot development would scream padding. This episode makes it work. You get the vibe that when he came up with this idea of throwing the Doctor into a parallel reality where we're seeing all of our beloved familiar faces, the Brigadier, Liz Shaw, Sergeant Benton, seeing all these wonderful familiar faces in this completely different reality, you definitely get this strong impression that not only did the writer enjoy this, but the actors, upon reading the script, were totally stoked by the notion of getting to show their familiar characters in completely different lights. You've got the Brigadier, who normally, in our reality, is much more stalwart, much more brave, much more selfless. In this reality, he is a fascist, and he is a coward. When I rewatched this episode in preparation for this review, I was all of a sudden going, whoa, We're already on episode 4? That's how good this story is, that it keeps the pace going and it never stops. And Jon Pertwee commands every single scene with authority, even though it's a very grim story. I mean, there are people who die in horrible ways in this story. Some of the imagery, particularly seeing some familiar characters, even some characters who are introduced in the story, end up becoming these horrible primal creatures. It's a freaky sight. And I will say the sound work with the noises that these creatures make is actually very unsettling. And even though a lot of the images of the earth breaking open and lava and all this stuff blowing out is very obviously matte paintings, stock footage, and even some bad color separation overlay combined with some adequate miniature work, it doesn't matter because the actors delivering this story deliver it with the utmost conviction. Even the actor who plays Professor Stallman, oh man, every time that clown absolutely ignores total logical advice and counsel from qualified personnel, you just want to sock that dude. You just want to beat the ever-loving hell out of him. It did drive me crazy how a lot of them don't just want to just sock him and just say, dude, all the signs are pointing that this is all going to go tits up, so can we please just stop and assess the situation? There's nothing that's going to be harmed by waiting. And this guy's like, no, this is my moment to triumph. He doesn't have a German accent. And an interesting bit of trivia, the actor who plays Sutton is in fact the actor who played the lead caveman Za in the very first Doctor Who story, An Unearthly Child. And he's actually one of the more fun sub-characters in this story. But because the episode is 7 parts long and we get 2 different perspectives from 2 different universes, it's kind of cool, the notion that 2 characters, specifically Sutton and Petra, you actually get to see a relationship build between the 2 of them. And it's interesting that in lieu of the fact that these are 2 different realities, the idea that there could still be some kind of human connection between these 2 people is actually kind of an interesting idea. Most other episodes, you always kind of get this strain that they're trying to draw the episode out. This is one where the ideas are so good, it fills up the episode perfectly. It still maintains a good, strong, steady pace. Really, I can't think of too many things wrong with the story. The only thing I could say on a production level that was kind of laughable, and probably was a last-minute effect done, was the transitions from one reality to another for the sake of the audience, is done by an out-of-focus spinning Jiffy Pop. That's the best way I can describe it. You pick a better way. It still serves the purpose of helping us comprehend what's going on from one way to the other. I suppose another thing that's important to note about this episode is that this is also the final episode of Liz Shaw. Now, there has been a lot of alternating stories as to why this was her last story. Alternatively, I've heard that she got pregnant. The production schedule on Doctor Who, notoriously being the punishing one it is, was not copacetic with being able to handle an actress who's pregnant. Alternatively, I've heard a lot of horrible reasons why she got kicked off the show. But either way, I was extremely sad because for the mere 2 episodes I watched of Inferno, I love Liz Shaw. I love the fact that her and the Doctor had something of a nice sparring relationship. The Doctor actually really respected her, definitely favored her advice above all others. Another thing I loved about this as a season finale is that the Brigadier in this first season did do some pretty stupid things, specifically involving the Silurians. And the final scene of the episode is absolutely wonderful, where the 3rd Doctor thinks he's finally able to get away scot-free, and he just lips off to the Brigadier, and when he comes to realization he screwed up again, Brigadier has the most sublime suck-it face I've ever seen on that character, and it was absolutely wonderful. But it was one of the great defining moments of the friendship between the Doctor and the Brigadier. So I consider Inferno's essential Doctor Who viewing, and even in lieu of its length, the story never lags. I utterly adored this one 100%, and even with the production value, there's still some really strong creepy imagery that really works, and definitely makes for some of the best of Doctor Who. After I saw Inferno, where did I go from there? Well, tune into Narcotic Casserole for my next Doctor Who review down the line. Have you seen this episode? Do you think it's one of Jon Pertwee's best? Do you think that some of the ones that came afterward were great? Do you miss Liz Shaw? Leave it all in the comments below. And for more Doctor Who content on Narcotic Casserole, simply like, share, subscribe, click, thou shalt be served.